So here's a stat that should make everybody working with AI very uncomfortable. 95% of AI pilot projects fail. Not 50%, not 75%, but 95%. That is actually from a 2025 MIT study that looked at over 300 enterprise AI deployments, and the vast majority delivered zero, that's zero measurable return. And here's the thing. This isn't just a corporate problem. If you've ever built a side project that's still sitting in a folder somewhere, or maybe even you started a tool for yourself that you used once and never touched again, you have experienced the same exact thing where there's zero measurable return. So today, I'm going to break down why this happens at companies and for individual builders. And more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Let's get into it. All right, so here is exactly what we will be covering today. So first, I'm actually going to walk through what's actually happening here. Why are so many of these projects dying after the demo? Like, what's the actual reason? Second, we are going to talk about the 3 big reasons this keeps happening. And spoiler alert, it's not the actual technology itself. And third, I'll share what the 5% who actually ship are doing differently, because there actually are some patterns that we could learn from them, that 5%. And finally, I will give you a super simple framework that you can use whether you're building at a Fortune 500 or just building a tool for yourself to actually get things shipped, integrated, and deliver real returns on your AI projects. Let's get into it. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sunny. I'm a serial founder now on my 4th startup. I'm also a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, where I teach tech. Listen, I've been building tech for over 15 years, well before AI. And honestly, my goal for this video, and really all my videos, is to make sense of all the things happening within the tech landscape, and honestly, to make using all of these AI tools more accessible for everyone. Let's get started with our first step. Right. So let's actually talk about what is actually happening here. So it's funny, there's this term that keeps coming up in all the research. It's called the pilot purgatory. And honestly, it perfectly captures everything that's going wrong. So let's actually walk through a scenario to make this a little bit more concrete. So a team builds a demo in like minimal time. It works great in the conference room. Everyone is super excited. The live demo instills this kind of wonder in everyone, like, wow, I cannot believe AI was able to generate all of that in such little time. Applause, high fives. The pilot seems like it's a huge success. But then nothing. That brilliant prototype, that darling of the innovation lab, never actually sees the light of a production environment. It almost stays like a clever party trick, permanently stuck in that pilot purgatory. And listen, this isn't a rare thing. This has been way more common this past year than many companies and individuals would care to admit. So let's actually examine the numbers behind this. So according to an S&P global survey of over 1,000 enterprises, 42% of companies abandoned most of their AI initiatives in 2025. That's up from just 17% in 2024. The average organization scrapped nearly half of their AI proof of concepts before they ever reached production. So that's major. BCG found that 74% of companies have yet to show any tangible value from their AI investments, nearly 3/4. And Rand Corporation's analysis found that over 80% of AI projects fail, which is twice the failure rate of non-AI technology projects. So what exactly is going on? Well, here is my broader take. In the old world, and by old world, I really mean like 2 years ago, value was largely all about execution. Could you write the code? Could you ship the features? Engineers, in a sense, were almost the gatekeepers here. Now everything has flipped. Execution is essentially abundant. Feedback is instant. You can go from idea to working prototype in literally an afternoon. But here's the thing. Most professionals, most teams, most companies, they spent their entire careers getting good at execution. But now that's table stakes. So what has happened is that the bottleneck has essentially moved. It's moved from execution to architecture. So the professionals who thrive going forward are not the ones who compile information or build the demo. They're actually the ones who design the system that make the demo actually work in the real world. And honestly, that's pretty much a completely different skill set. All right, so let's talk about some reasons why these AI pilots keep failing. I want to kind of go deeper and get more concrete. So the first reason, and this is the big one, demos are not production. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So the MIT researchers describe something they call the learning gap. Tools that maybe work perfectly in a demo, but they don't learn, they don't adapt, and they don't actually integrate with actual real-world enterprise workflows. So think about it. When someone builds a prototype, they're using a small, clean, curated data set. They're working in a controlled environment. They're usually the only user. But once that goes out into the wild, the data gets messy. Edge cases multiply. Real users do things you never actually anticipated. That is huge, and it's a major gap. And so that's a story for companies, but even for individuals, even if you're working on a side project, the same thing happens. You build something great that works when you use it on your laptop with your specific workflow, then you try to share it, or maybe even you try to use it differently, and it breaks. So that's a big reason. Demos are not production. So that is our first reason why AI pilots fail. Now, to go on to the second reason, nobody owns the outcome. Now, this one is a bit more sneaky and pertains more to organizational structure. In most organizations, there's a disconnected tribes problem. Product teams chase features, infrastructure teams harden security, data teams clean pipelines, compliance officers draft policies. Everyone's kind of doing their own job, but nobody has shared success metrics. Nobody owns the actual outcome. Now, McKinsey's research shows that only about 20% of companies even measure AI success with business metrics. Everyone else is kind of just vibing. Now, here is the uncomfortable truth. One reason proof of concepts die is that nobody volunteers for supporting version 1.1. Building the demo is super exciting, and we're kind of testing the waters with these new powerful technologies, but now maintaining it, that's an entirely different story. Now, here is a framing that's been super useful for me. Think of judgment as the integration layer between AI and reality. AI can produce the outputs, of course, but reality has constraints, things like budget, politics, timing, relationships, risk tolerance. Those are all constraints in reality. And judgment is a thing that connects those two. It's the translation layer that says, okay, this is what the AI gave us. Here's what we're actually going to do with it, given everything else we know, given all the other context. Pilots die when there's no integration layer. The AI does its thing, but nobody actually translates that into actual decisions that work in the real world. That translation, though, it's really not automatable. That's a person saying, hey, given everything I know about this situation, here is the call. And without that, you just have a demo that impressed some people in a conference room. All right. Going back to this, here's our third reason why projects fail after the demo. It's scope creep, which is what I call feature addiction. Let's walk through an example. You start with a simple focus idea, then someone says, but what if we add this? And then they say, well, we should add that. And before you know it, your MVP has 47 features and you've been almost done for 6 months. Gartner actually predicts that over 40% of agentic AI projects will actually be canceled by 2027, specifically because of escalating costs and unclear business value. The scope just keeps growing until no one can justify the investment anymore. And AI makes it so easy to creep that scope because it seems like it's very simple to add so many features. And for individual builders, the story is the same. You know what I'm talking about. You start out wanting to build a very simple tool, and before you know it, you add all these new features, and now you abandon the project because it becomes so overwhelming. Listen, 90% of AI-built projects will die within days. The hardest part isn't the technology, it's maintaining the momentum. And that becomes difficult when the novelty fades, when the scope creeps, and when things tend to break. All right, so that's the bad news. Now let's talk about what actually works, because there's still that 5% of projects that are successful, and they follow some pretty clear patterns. So let's break it down. So the first pattern is this. They start with workflows, not the actual technology. The winners here don't start by asking, what AI can we use? They actually start by asking, what workflows need to change? McKinsey's 2025 survey found that organizations reporting significant financial returns are twice as likely to have redesigned end-to-end workflows before selecting any technology. The MIT study also found the same thing. The biggest ROI is not in, sales and marketing tools, which seems to be where a lot of the investment is going. It's actually in back office automation, things like streamlining operations or eliminating manual processes or even cutting any potential agency costs. It definitely is unsexy, but it is what is actually effective right now. All right, so the second pattern that successful AI pilots tend to follow is that they actually buy more than they build. Now, this surprised me. Companies that purchased AI tools from specialized vendors succeeded about 67% of the time. Internal builds, on the other hand, only succeeded 1/3 as often. Why? Because the thing is, specialized vendors have already solved the integration challenges. They've already dealt with the edge cases. They have actual production experience. And for individual builders, the same principle applies. Don't try to reinvent the wheel here. Use existing tools and frameworks. Your unique value is not in being able to build authentication from scratch. It's actually in being able to solve your specific problem as fast as possible. Now, another pattern that successful AI pilots tend to follow is that they optimize for speed to go live. Now, here is something I tell everyone I work with. Optimize for speed to getting something live. Remove as many hurdles as possible. Think of the first version as almost like a phase one. Yes, it might not have as much comparative value to just using ChatGPT or Claude directly, but if you actually get it live, you can actually build in automations over time, and that value almost compounds and grows exponentially as you're able to build stuff on. Listen, a pilot that stays a pilot forever is worthless. A simple tool, on the other hand, that's actually in production is invaluable. And here's the deal. The research keeps pointing to the same thing. The biggest ROI is not the flashy stuff. It's actually things like back office automation, streamlining operation, cutting manual processes. Nobody's making TikToks about invoice processing, but that's where the real impact is. Here's my take. We are all addicted to impressive. We want the AI that wows the executive team, not the AI that saves Linda in accounting 4 hours a week. But here's the thing, Linda's 4 hours, that is real and that compounds. That actually ships to production because nobody is trying to overcomplicate it. The 5% of AI demos that are successful are not trying to chase impressive. They're just trying to chase useful. And being useful should be prioritized above all else. All right, let me actually give you something concrete that you can actually use. If you're stuck in pilot purgatory right now, or you're about to start something new, here is what I want you to do. Step 1, audit ruthlessly. Are you solving a real problem or just chasing buzzwords? Could you break it into smaller milestones? What is the simplest version that delivers value? Those are the questions that I want you to really answer. Step 2, define what done means. What does success actually look like? Not just, oh, it works in the demo, but what is the measurable outcome? For companies, that is business metrics. For individuals, that is simply just being able to use the tool and actually using the tool on a regular basis. Step 3, set a timeline. So mid-sized companies scale from a pilot into production in about 90 days. Larger enterprises could take up to 9 months. If you're building something for yourself, you really should be in production in a matter of days, not weeks. But ultimately, you just want to be clear on what the timeline should be. And then finally, step 4, very important, assign ownership. Someone needs to own the actual outcome, not the demo, not the features, the actual outcome. If that's you building for yourself, great. Then that means that you are the owner and you must own that outcome. And here's the thing. When you are building, think about compounding. Not just, does this solve a problem, but does this increase my leverage over time? Every single thing you build should be thought of as, am I doing a one-off thing or am I building something that compounds? A pilot that solves one problem once, well, that's really just a project. A system, though, that solves a category of problems forever, that is leverage. The people who escape this kind of pilot purgatory aren't just shipping more, they're actually shipping things that make the next thing easier. That is a major mindset shift. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. All right, so let's bring this home. We just covered why 95% of AI pilots fail, the 3 real reasons behind it, and what the 5% of successful projects do differently. The big TLDR here is that it's not the technology itself. It's not even the idea. It's that gap between demo and production. It's scope discipline. It's ownership. It's designing systems, not just building features. Now, here's what I want you to do. If you have something stuck in this kind of pilot purgatory right now, some project, some tool, some idea, I want you to get it live this week. Not perfect, but live. Strip it down to the absolute minimum and ship it. Now, if you don't have a project yet, I want you to identify one. Identify some friction in your work or life that should be systematized. Just one. Then build the simplest possible solution. Tag me on Twitter or drop it in the comments. I am genuinely curious to see what you decide to build. Because here's the thing. We are at an inflection point where we are going to see an enormous upswing in velocity around productivity. But it's actually going to be unevenly distributed. There will be 2 types of people. Ones who are feeling like they are so behind, and the other ones who are on top of things and actually able to ship things. The difference is not talent. The difference isn't even resources. It's whether you can close that gap between this is cool to this is live and useful. That's the work. And honestly, that is the opportunity. Now, if you stuck around till the end of this video, I appreciate you. I will see you on the next one.